This is the Prestigious Initiative, and these are the points. I'm Chris Kent, and I'm joining Chris Bean. Hello, Mr. Bean.
Hello, sir.
Let's talk about your conversation with John James Santangelo. Definitely not what I thought would. Definitely not what I thought we'd be talking about when we ended the conversation. I don't know anything about NLP. I feel like I still have just scratched the surface of what NLP is or can be. But it was wonderful to sit down with John and hear his thoughts and perspective on several different things. And I think one of my favorite things was the practical examples or exercises that he gave us to take away, and just sitting down and running through some of those with him and seeing where that got us was huge and very impactful. So I'm definitely curious about NLP and the different work that John is doing. But just great conversation and kind of eye-opening in many regards.
Yeah, I would agree. He was very easy to talk to. The conversation flew by. It was wonderful. And you're right. I think that the tangible takeaways that he gave us through the practices were immensely beneficial. Very, very good.
And I won't even come close to kind of walking through the same way that he did, but a couple takeaways from what he was saying. And this sounds silly to say, but I feel like I was more engrossed or in touch with the conversation than I normally would be, and I didn't take very clear or very many notes. So we'll kind of work our way through this. But one of the things he started talking about, just in life in general, and kind of something that you can use to help yourself along, was to know what you want and then get out of your way. You know, he talked about this in a couple different regards, but it started off with knowing what you want. Maybe it's a goal or something that you can work toward, or something that you value that you want to kind of, make a priority, knowing what you want. And then the second step to that is getting out of your own way, getting out of your head, getting out of your repetitive thought processes, and getting out of your states of fear or worry, whatever it is about it. Those two things are pivotal steps in being able to move forward and grow and advance. And, I think it's one of those things that we talk about in many different ways, but put simply, know what you want and get out of your own way are two vital steps in growing and improving.
Yeah. So when I think about that, knowing what you want and getting out of your own way, to me, that speaks on, like, we are our own worst critic, and we will hold ourselves back because we don't think we're capable, or we're afraid of failure or success or whatever it is. We're afraid to do the thing. So by getting out of our own way, we just fall into the shoes of somebody that is capable of doing those things, and then go out and do those things, right? So as I'm thinking through getting out of your own way, that is, like, know what you want is not an easy task. And we talked about that when we were meeting with John. Knowing what you want is tough because it's not easy to say, yep, that's what I want. And then on top of that, to find out what you want and then to get out of your own way so you can go and do those things. The getting out of your own way maybe is the part that people can relate to a little bit more, because getting out of your own way means that you are actively allowing yourself to pursue whatever it is, that thing that you want, right? Finding what you want, that's beyond me. I don't know how to help people find what they want. That's a challenge, because it's not easy just to answer, what do you want? Why, I don't actually know what I want. And he talked about that. You have to ask and ask and ask and ask and ask and ask and ask. And finally, well, I guess it's this. And then finally, that'll be the answer. But then once you find what you want, getting out of your way and again, we hold ourselves back. We are our own worst critics. We are consistently self-sabotaging ourselves from doing whatever it is, just from the fear, the potential thing that might happen, the potential outcome that could happen. And really that's so challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about several, or at least two different places that some of these things kind of we interact with some of these things, and that was, your environment and your mindset. So your physical, the physical aspect of what's going on, and then the mental aspect of what's going on, your environment and your mindset. And the most important thing about navigating those two things, or working within those two different areas, is your awareness. So make sure you're aware, first and foremost, of where you are, of what you're thinking, and kind of all that's going on. And, we talked about, I wish I wrote it down. but I wrote down part of it here at least. We talked about pain, the pain of remaining the same, and we talked about how it relates to a lot of people are afraid of changing and how much it's going to hurt to change, and they don't change until the pain of remaining the same is greater than the pain of changing, I think is how he kind of worded it and phrased it there. And part of that again is the awareness and dealing with understanding where you are, the different thought patterns you're in, and how that's affecting your life physically because of that mental kind of cycle. So again, the pain of remaining the same becomes greater than the pain of changing, and that's when people start to actually make a difference and actually do something, because it's just too hard to continue down the path that they're on.
Right. And of course, change comes from changing something. We talked about changing the environment, and really changing your environment is one step on the path. But your mental environment, your mindset, if your mental environment doesn't change along with your physical environment, then change doesn't happen. Right? You have to change both of those things. And changing the physical environment, people do all the time. They move to a new city, they make new friends, all of these things. But the in their head, their mental environment didn't change. The things that they were doing, they're still doing. They're just doing them somewhere else. The thoughts that they were thinking, they're still thinking. They're just thinking them somewhere else. So once that pain of remaining the same gets so great, then you're willing to change something. And changing is tough. It's tough because it takes both the physical and the mental parts. There's two parts to that equation, and people often get the first one, physical. Go move somewhere else. Make a new life for yourself. Okay, great, that's fine. But if I take somebody picks me up, moves me on the map, and sets me down somewhere else, I'm still me. The things that happen in my head still happen in my head. So the environment changed, but my mental environment, my mindset stayed the same. So until that pain of remaining the same gets so great, the change doesn't happen. We talked about, James Clear mentions in his book, Atomic Habits, that Vietnam vets, when they were overseas and doing the awful things that they had to deal with on a daily basis, the environment there was so tough. Many of them were addicted to heroin. And that's one, that was astonishing to learn. And then by changing the environment, their mental environment, their physical environment, by coming back home, that so many of them were able to quit cold turkey, which is wild, because heroin is so addictive, and the withdrawals for it are so tough, but they were able to stop because their physical and emotional and mental environments all changed. The pain of remaining the same was so great that they were able to change. And I think, like he said, that hits it, right? Once the pain of remaining the same is so much, that's where change will happen. The hard part is we have to go through that really tough stretch. We have to go through that tough stretch, that tough time, in order to make it out of the other side. The night is darkest just before the dawn. You have to go through that dark part before you can emerge in the light on the other side.
And kind of tying into that, another phrase that John used, or another thing he talked about, was how we as humans avoid pain more than we seek pleasure. So you may think that we're constantly trying to, chase after pleasure or find things that are pleasurable to us, but in reality, we're just trying to avoid the things that are painful. And we do that more than we would actually seek that pleasure. And when you're trying to change, and when you're working on change, and you're going about changing, you need to take responsibility. After you're aware of where you are and what's going on, you want to change, you need to be responsible for that change. And John described responsibility as responding with ability. So it's important that you also set yourself up in the best way possible. Surround yourself with people that can be helpful to you. Do some studying, search out and find answers that can be helpful to you, or educate yourself in ways that are going to be beneficial. And don't just sit around and do nothing. You need to provide yourself with the ability to respond to the things that you become aware of, and advocate for your own change, and start the process yourself. Just wait around for someone to do it for you. Some people can help you. People are important in joining you on this journey, but you need to be responsible. Make yourself able so you can respond to the awareness for the need to change.
Yeah, wonderful. I couldn't have said it better.
So moving on, he talked about 3 different aspects of life basically. Everything can boil down into one of three different aspects of life. And they were relationship, money, and health, and how everything that we do interacts with these different aspects of life, and how it's important to recognize those three things. And then again, as we're talking about, make yourself able to interact with those different areas and keep them in good standing. Have good standing relationships, have success in money, or stable money, or have a good standing health. And beyond being able to manage those things, it's important to understand that those are the three kind of things that are going to drive us to make decisions. When you're making a decision, you're doing it for relationship, wealth, or health. Relationship, money, or health. Excuse me. So when you're aware of what's going on, you're making changes. Try to determine, what goal or what area of my life is this benefiting, or is this tied to, and it's going to help you put some more clarity or perspective on what's going on.
Right, and we talked about in school, those three areas: relationships, money, and health. Health is taught in school, but not really. Those three things really aren't taught in school, about what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to interact with those and how we're supposed to grow and improve those things. And until we understand that those things are so important to how we live our life, they're like kind of fundamental to how we make decisions. Until we impact and learn and grow in those areas, we can't change those things, right? If you're stuck with your same ideas about relationships, or with money, or with your health, you can't change them, because there's no new information coming in. We have to take in new information. You have to actually learn those things. And again, those things aren't taught in school, how to actually improve those things. Again, health we had in school, but not like what we need health to be like in school. We don't know. We don't know how to manage money. We're not taught how to manage money in school, how to, all of those things are so important. As soon as you leave school, you just know how to do those things, but we're not taught. So if you are right now under the understanding that you don't know how to interact with those things, seek out other people. Find mentors, find some books to listen to some podcasts, whatever it is, but grow in those areas, because without the growth in those areas, without the new information coming in, you're going to be stuck and frozen in time, not knowing very much at all, if any, on those areas. And those three areas are where your key decisions stem from.
Another phrase he used that I really liked was he talked about trying, and how trying is just excusing failure in advance. If you tell yourself, oh, I'm going to try something, well, then when you inevitably fail, or you end up failing at some point in time, it's okay, because you were just trying. It wasn't something you actually committed to. And so in situations, maybe changing that vocabulary can be a huge perspective shift. Instead of saying, hey, I'm trying to save money, and then you end up spending all your money, and I was just trying to anyways. It wasn't anything serious. Set up a goal for yourself. Say, hey, I'm going to do this thing. This is something that I will do, rather than just try. And I'd never heard anyone kind of phrase it that way. Trying is just excusing failure in advance, but it kind of changes the mindset, changes the perspective of that.
Well, I think that speaks on getting out of your own way, knowing what you want, and then getting out of your own way. That the vocabulary that we use can be used as a crutch that we rely on, that we box ourselves in. Well, I'm trying to do this. Okay, well, that's fine, except for you understand that you have an easy out if and when it doesn't work, right? As opposed to, I'm doing this, I'm going to make this happen, right? This is happening. I'm making this. Those are much different thoughts and emotions and feelings that are linked to those words, because there's no out to those things, right? If you're going to do it, do it. If you're going to try to, think about how all the people, I'm trying to lose some weight. Okay, that doesn't often go well for people. I'm trying this new diet. I'm trying this. Okay, but until you commit to doing it, there's always going to be a way out. That wasn't for me. I'm gonna try this one. This one wasn't. I would try. No, don't try. Do, right? And that simple phrasing is so important, right? So I think that instance can be extrapolated out over the various things that you say. And the words that you say have so much meaning, so much more meaning than what I'm sure you realize. And I think that one instance is insight onto how important the words that we say are.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of words and kind of going back to how John talked about responsibility, responding with ability, he also gave us a little perspective shift on success. He said that success is opportunity meeting preparedness. And again, there's a common theme between those two different things is being ready, being prepared, being able, equipping yourself with the tools needed to kind of tackle these things. And again, it speaks to the idea or the necessity really of educating yourself, being prepared, being ready, and kind of setting yourself up in the best possible scenario, knowing what you want and getting out of your own way, knowing what you want and find out what's holding you back, remove that thing or do the best you can to get past that thing so you can be successful, so you can get the things that you want, and so you can really be in a good position to keep achieving your goals and really focusing on your values and what's important to you.
Agreed.
So, kind of getting into a little bit of NLP, he walked us through several different things that were very interesting and kind of mind opening. And again, I'm not going to pretend to know anything about NLP beside what John shared to us. And even then, I'm not sure I could adequately talk about all of it, but it was interesting just to focus on some of the things he talked about. He was talking about our memories and how our memories are tied to emotions. And he kind of walked the two of us through a little exercise. He asked us, what's something that mildly annoys you? Think about that thing. Is the color is the picture in color or black and white? Is it static or is it moving? Or is there sounds? Is there smells? Kind of walks us through all of that, and then kind of how to take the emotion away from that and set the picture off into the distance and separate those two things so that when we think about that memory, we're not necessarily relating the emotion to that negative memory. And again, I'm sure there's tons more that can be done with that practice, but again, that is taking that into your own hands and doing something about it. Because if you're always getting mad about this one little thing that, again, admittedly isn't a huge deal, but it's affecting you so badly, that I can imagine is going to disrupt your normal life or lead to even further problems if that's not something that you can control. And we talked about how the unconscious mind serves us. The unconscious mind is there to really help us. And so if we're able to do this for many different things, if there's always something in your way trying to remove the emotion from that thing, maybe that thing won't be in your way in the same to the same degree as it is now. Can be a useful tool. But again, I would defer anybody toward NLP or even John if you are interested in that, want to find out more about that. We just got a little crash course, and again, I probably am not doing it justice, but it was really cool to sit through that kind of exercise with him, just scratching the surface of what this is able to do for us and for many other people.
Yeah, that exercise is really cool. I think we experienced it from the in-user perspective, but don't know the tactics necessarily that were at play. And without knowing the tactics, it's hard to say that this is why those things happened. I can't tell you why it happened, but I can tell you it was beneficial to go through. And if you haven't yet listened to the episode, I would check out the actual episode where we met with John. And as he's bringing us through those practices, through those key takeaways, those practical exercises, I would encourage you to do the same as well, because again, very, very beneficial. And it's hard to, like you said, it's hard to speak on what actually is happening without knowing the tactics, the specifics, the specifics that are going on as he's doing them, because I'm sure he has all kinds of plug and play type of things that he knows that we aren't privy to. So again, if you haven't yet, go back, listen to the episode, and as he's bringing us through those exercises, play along, do them for yourself, and then if you can kind of see how it plays out, think about, okay, let's do this again, but with something different. Let's do this again with something different. Then you can start to use that in your own life. But again, wildly beneficial, and just a simple, I don't know, it was 5 minutes, if that, worth of time that changed the perspective on key things. And if you could do it for that small thing, I'm sure it can be done pretty similarly for something large. But again, like you said, get in touch with John if you want or need more information for that.
And another exercise that he kind of walks us through, which is tied to NLP, was breathing. We did a little section or a little chat about breathing and how breathing is really important in bringing your body and your mind into sync. And that's something that John kind of left us with is, he encouraged us to learn how our brain and our body work together, because again, it's that environment and that mentality, the physical and the mental, and how those two things interact with each other. And if you can, set yourself up to be able to respond with ability, to be responsible, and then, have the preparedness to meet the opportunity in order to succeed, I think you're going to set yourselves up for success, of course, and be responsible for what's going on in your life. And so knowing how that stuff kind of works together, how the breathing, how the emotions, how all the stuff is kind of tied together is huge. Definitely something that we could all benefit from. And it was great to hear John kind of walk us through a little bit of what that can be and how beneficial that is for us.
Right. And of course, breathing, you hear breathing all the time, on all these people are, oh, you got to watch your breathing and do this. And like, it seems so superficial. Like it doesn't, but the breathing method that John talked about is the physiological sigh. And he referenced it as a 2-4-6 method, where you take 2 quick breaths in, you hold for 4 seconds, and then you do a 6-second exhale. And I have been exposed to the physiological side before. He does it for the 2-4-6-8, actually, is what he does. So you two breaths in, you hold for 4, you extend for 6, and then you do that 8 times. And from there, then that really puts you in a different frame of mind, changes your emotional state. And it seems so silly and so simple, but I can tell you from experience, having done that physiological sign, a little bit different, a little bit. I didn't do the 2-4-6-8 method, but the physiological side, the two inhale, double inhale, hold, and then the long extended exhale is wildly beneficial. And if in key cases where you are emotionally out of whack, let's say if your emotions are too high, or you're afraid, or you're nervous, doing that really kind of brings you back down to a 0. And the first time I heard about the physiological side was from the Andrew Huberman podcast. And I tend to believe and agree with a lot of the things that he says. It's all science-based. And that was the first time that I heard about it. And I tried it a handful of times, and I've done it with other people that were in tough situations, and I can see the benefits of it. And again, it seems so simple. Like, just breathe. What do you mean breathe? I'm breathing all the time. It's something about it. And so if you catch yourself and your emotions are getting too high, or you're getting scared or upset or frustrated, whatever it is, try this. There's John talks about it as a 2-4-6-8 method. 2 inhales, double inhale. You hold for 4 seconds. Then you do a 6-second exhale, real slow, and you do that 8 times in succession. Changes your emotional state. I wish I could tell you why. If you really wanted to know why, I would refer you back to the Andrew Huberman podcast. I'm sure there he states the specifics and the papers and all the stuff that goes with it. Physiological sigh, A+, good. I like hearing John talk about that.
Yes, sir. Yeah, kind of brings us back into the last point I want to make, and this is something that you and I talk about often, or you brought up to me, and of course, ever since you brought up to me, now I can't help but see it everywhere. And we mentioned the synchronicity theory, and how the coincidences, so to speak, appear in our lives. And it was just cool because, like I said, you had told me about synchronicity theory, and ever since you told me about it, we've been seeing different things line up. And then now here, this conversation with John, boom, there it was, synchronicity theory. So it's just worth mentioning that those two things are also, part of that.
Yeah, and just a quick dive into synchronicity. If you don't know what that is, it's a Carl Jung theory, where essentially, here's the story, right? You're sitting at a coffee shop, and you're thinking, man, I've been meaning to talk to John. Next time I see him, I'm gonna, I'm gonna text John. That way I can, say. And then sure enough, John comes through the door. Right? Have you had something like that happen to you? I'm sure. Maybe not that exact situation, but you've been thinking about somebody, and then you see that person. Somebody you haven't seen, or you're thinking about your mom, and then your mom calls, wow, Mom, I was just thinking about you. Right? So wild, so crazy that happens. That's Carl Jung's theory of synchronicity in the example. And it's the best way that I can understand it is That is key insight, that you are aware of the things that are going on, right? You're being present on the things that are happening. Now, I'm sure there's many other things that are happening in order to start to see those things, but it is wild when it happens. And then when it happens, if it happens, and then it continues to happen, and again, it's really interesting, really interesting. So again, if you want some more reading about that, Carl Jung's theory of synchronicity, good luck, have fun, enjoy.
Make sure you follow us on social media. You can find the podcast at Prestigious Pod.
You can find me, Chris Bean, at Chris Bean Official.
You can find me, Mr. Kent, at Mr. Chris R. Kent.
And if you like our content and would like to subscribe to our email, you can do that via our social media or on the website.
Make sure you also join our Discord for exclusive content and personal interactions.
If you would like to be coached on how to live a more prestigious life by me, Chris Bean, you can do that by reaching out on one of my social medias or by emailing the podcast at prestigiousinitiative@gmail.com.
Those are the points. Make sure you come back next week for even more points and another great conversation. Until next time, I'm Chris Kent.
And I'm Chris Bean.